Hello to everyone who's nice and early joining for the ThoughtWorks webinar today. We're just going to give it a few minutes for the participants to fill up, but thank you for getting in nice and early. Just to start off with a few kind of rules around the webinar. So if you do have questions, which we very much encourage, great to get some user questions and some audience questions in, please use the Q&A feature. We won't unfortunately be able to get to people that are raising hands. But if you do use the Q&A feature, one of the benefits is if we can't answer that live, we will be given those questions afterwards. So it may be that we can follow up on email and things like that to get back to you, but we will try our very best to get through as many questions as possible during the live webinar. So yes, please do focus on using the Q&A feature. The webinar will be recorded, so we should be able to access that afterwards. But again, we'll follow up with an email post-webinar with any instructions on how to access any of the content that is being shared, as well as obviously how to get in touch with ThoughtWorks if you're interested in any of the things that have been said on the call, which I'm sure you will be. We've got some really good content coming up for you guys. So yeah, in terms of today's webinar, before we start, I just want to mention that as part of our event strategy, we strive to make our webinars and all of our content as inclusive as possible. So for today's event, we're going to be using live transcript, so you can follow along with our speakers. It should be switched on, and you should see it pop up on the right-hand side, the little CC. If you would like to use that feature, please note that you don't have to have this turned on, but if you feel it'll be useful for you to have the transcript coming through live, then please do use that feature. As part of this session, we'll each be providing an audio description of ourselves as well. So with that in mind, I'm Phil Kell. I'm Head of Talent at Hackajob. I'll be moderating today's session. I'm bald, quite a large brown beard, quite hard to miss, I would think. So yeah, there we are in terms of the audio description. If we just want to go around the room very quickly, I think everyone else can introduce themselves and give a brief audio description of themselves. So Amy, why don't you start?
Yes. So my name's Amy Lynch. I head up diversity and inclusion for ThoughtWorks in the UK. My pronouns are she and her. I have a rainbow background, quite a colourful top, and I still have some lockdown hair going on that's tied up in a ponytail. So pleased to be here. Thanks for the intro, Phil.
No problem. And Laura?
Hi there, I'm Laura. I actually have my video switched off. I helped organise the event with ThoughtWorks and hackajob. I sit on the marketing team. If you have any questions about ThoughtWorks, let me know in the chat. And I have brown hair. I'm currently wearing glasses. In my picture, I'm by the seaside.
Fantastic. And Matthew, it'd be great if you could intro yourself, please.
Yeah, hi, I'm Matthew here. First of all, I'm profoundly deaf, so my speech is not perfect, but hopefully you can understand me. I'm a technical delivery lead at ThoughtWorks, and I have a red and white check shirt. I've got brown hair, brown eyes, and I've actually got a woke tan. I went to Wales about 2 weeks ago, and I had a maidy weather because every time I go there, it rains about 99% of the time. So I've got a quite nice tan. Anyway, nice to meet you all.
Lovely, fantastic tan, excellent. Thank you very much. Lucy?
Hello everyone, my name is Lucy Fang. I'm a software developer at ThoughtWorks. I'm wearing a khaki green jumper. I'm just really scared of the cold. My house is a bit cold and my windows aren't double glazed, so draft comes in. But we are fixing that soon. I have long black hair and the background is just like a very open green office because I am missing the office environment. Pleased to meet you all.
Perfect. Yeah, it looks like a lovely office. And finally, last but not least, Rebecca.
Hi everybody, so I'm Rebecca. I'm a recruiter here at ThoughtWorks. Really pleased to kind of meet you all. And if you do have any questions in terms of our recruitment process or application, please feel free to ask away. In terms of my appearance, I have bright pink lipstick on today, trying to give like summer vibes. I have a dark jumper, I have dark hair in a plait, and I'm currently wearing hooped earrings. In terms of my backdrop, as you can see, I love plants and flowers, so there are a lot of plants going on in the background, but happy to meet you all and look forward to this webinar.
Perfect. Thank you very much to all of our panelists for those intros. Great. So just for anyone who isn't familiar with hackajob and what we do, just very quickly, we are a recruitment platform based on a skills-based matching approach, which matches great candidates to great companies based on their skills and preferences, and allows both kind of companies and candidates to connect and manage their processes via the platform. But that's enough about us. Without further ado, I think let's get into the webinar content. Just one final reminder, please do use the Q&A feature rather than the chat or raising hands. We do encourage questions. We want as many questions from you guys as possible, but please use the Q&A feature, and that will allow us to get through as many questions as we can and get back to you afterwards. But yeah, enough from me. I'll hand over to Amy to start the presentation.
Thank you very much. So really pleased to be here. Looking forward to this event, and I'm very, very privileged to be able to introduce this session and work alongside Lucy and Matthew, who are going to be sharing some insights into their experiences and what their careers are like and their experiences at ThoughtWorks. But my job is to tell you a little bit more about what ThoughtWorks is about, our company, our culture. So here we have a map with lots of our locations on. We are a growing business. So I've been at ThoughtWorks now for 9 years, and I've done a few different roles. I head up diversity and inclusion, but I have a background in marketing and sales and recruitment as well. So I joined our Manchester office in the UK 9 years ago when it was very small. We didn't really have many people, and I mean, even in the time I've been here, that's grown massively as well. So in the UK, we've got 2 offices. We've got one in Manchester, one in London, but you can see here we're a community that stretches right across the globe. So we're around about just over 8,000 employees now. We're in 17 different countries. We've got 48 offices, and we've been going now for just over 27 years. So way back when, we started as a social experiment in a basement in Chicago, and it's quite interesting to see now that 27 years later we are a global community of passionate individuals whose purpose is to revolutionize software design while advocating for positive social change. So I'm very proud to be a thought worker. I feel like I learn a lot on a day-to-day basis, and that's one of the reasons that I've been here as long as I have. So yeah, it's great to be part of a community like this. Next slide, please. So this is a little bit about ThoughtWorks Purpose. So essentially, we want to create an extraordinary impact on the world through our culture and technology excellence. So we're a technology consultancy. Tech is very much at the core of our business and everything that we do. But actually, we recognize that we have an opportunity as technologists, as individuals, to have a positive impact on the world through the software that we build, through the community that we have here at ThoughtWorks. So we really do care deeply about that. And there's a few different aspects to this. So, you know, we want to be an awesome partner for clients and their ambitious missions. Typically, the types of organizations that we work with, they want to really revolutionize their industry or make big changes. And we partner with them to help them make that change a reality. We want to revolutionize the tech industry. That's something we've always cared deeply about. You know, Agile was a huge part of our journey as we were growing up, and it's great to see that widely adopted across the industry. But we're always looking at the latest technologies and the advancements and how that can drive positive social change. We want to amplify positive social change and advocate for an equitable tech future. This is where a lot of diversity and equality and inclusion stuff comes into. We recognize that we all have superpowers to bring regardless of how we identify. And actually, we want to include that in the way that we build technology, because we want to include everyone in the technology that we build as well. We want to foster a vibrant community of diverse and passionate technologists. and achieve enduring commercial success and sustained growth. You know, we're a growing business. Just this year, we have acquired 2 businesses in Europe. So we now are in Finland and Romania, and we have a presence in Amsterdam as well. So we're growing, there's lots of opportunities, we're constantly learning, and it's a really exciting journey to be on. So you can see there some of our core values at the bottom of this slide. You know, we believe in being courageous, we believe in inclusivity, we have a global first approach, cultivation is important, you know, growing others, helping others on that journey, integrity, really, really important, always has been for the time I've been at ThoughtWorks, and a few other things there as well. So it's an organisation that is very committed to making a difference, and I think we do things quite differently here. So hopefully that gives you a bit of insight into what we're about as an organisation and our size and scale. So the last part that I'm going to talk about is, and I'd be doing myself a disservice if I didn't, is about diversity, equity and inclusion at ThoughtWorks. So next slide, please. So why do we care about diversity, equity and inclusion? We care about it because we believe these have the power to create transformative social change. So this slide needs work. I'm not the best designer, I must admit, but I wanted to share with you some of the stuff that we're doing around diversity, equity and inclusion within our UK business. Some of this is also happening at a global level, but obviously working as part of a global business, it can be very difficult to do the same thing consistently in so many different regions where we all face different challenges and different levels of inequality for different communities. So in the UK, we have a number of different lenses through which we view things. So gender, disability, race and ethnicity, and LGBTQ+ inclusion are 4 of our main focus areas here in the UK. We believe in increasing the representation of women and underrepresented minorities within the tech industry through hiring, through retention, through offering support around leadership development and helping to build leaders of the future who are going to be part of this transformative change that we so desperately want to see. So we do have very specific goals and partnerships in place to further the agenda around gender, disability, race and ethnicity and LGBT inclusion. Some of these include, we work with Stonewall, that is an LGBTQ+ inclusion charity. We've been on quite a journey with them over the years, and we're currently, I think, 53rd place in their top 100 workplace equality index for companies who are committed to LGBT inclusion, which is great. But when we started, I think we were in 317th place. So we've been on quite a journey in 6 years to look at how do we make our business more inclusive when it comes to LGBT communities? What can we be doing better? And constantly pushing for progress to make improvements. Around disability, we have recently signed up to something called the Valuable 500. They're a great initiative that's helping have important, crucial conversations around furthering disability inclusion. And this isn't just about in your organisation, but this is about how do you consider the needs of your users and your customers who might have various disabilities. How are you making things accessible and how are you being inclusive? So there's lots of different ways to look at how these play out. Around race and ethnicity, we have signed up to the Race at Work Charter, which has a number of different things you are encouraged to push for progress around. Have an executive sponsor to further the conversation around race equality in your workplace, is one of them, and we are very fortunate to have a great leader who advocates for this at ThoughtWorks. But we're always about looking at our policies. Are they inclusive? We've just introduced part of our annual leave policy. We've introduced some flexibility that will help people who might be observing Ramadan or other festivals and celebrations that go off the lunar calendar to make it more inclusive for them to be able to book their holidays and celebrate in a way that works for them. So we're always looking for ways to change and improve what we're doing. And around gender, we're currently around about 38 or 39% of our professional services, so these are our technical colleagues, identify as women, or UGM, which is underrepresented gender minorities. So these are people who might be non-binary or identify in more of a gender fluid way. So we're pleased with that, but we've still got a long, long way to go when it comes to gender equality. So these are big focus areas. However, we're also looking at age, we look at religion and belief, we look at working carers and what barriers they face, and we look at social mobility. You know, how do we encourage the industry, the tech industry, to look at people who come from different backgrounds rather than just university educated in computer science degrees from a red brick university. So it's big. It's bold. I'm not sure that we will ever be able to say that we've cracked it and we have removed all barriers and become fully inclusive, but we are very much on a mission to try and change our organisation, but also encourage the tech industry as a whole to be more inclusive and representative, because we need the people who build our tech to be representative of the people who use it, right? So yeah, so hopefully this helps give you a bit of an insight into ThoughtWorks as a business, why we care about diversity, equality and inclusion, and what really matters to us. So I hope I've done that justice. I hope that is an appropriate introduction. And I shall now, I think, do I hand back to you, Phil, to introduce our next speaker, or would you like me to pass over?
By all means, yeah, pass it straight on. That's absolutely fine.
Okay, cool. So I am going to hand over to my colleague, Matthew, who I have the pleasure of working quite closely with. So Matthew, over to you.
Thank you, Amy. Hi, hello everybody. So I think I already mentioned that I'm profoundly deaf. So my speech is not perfect, but hopefully you'll be able to understand what I'm saying. The good news is I've only got one slide, so I don't really like providing too many slides. I'd rather talk about myself and what I do and so on. But this is what I'm going to talk about the next 10 minutes. A bit about my journey, a typical day in the office, what challenges I face with my disability, and what interests me most, and what I'm passionate about. And because ThoughtWorks allow me to do my own things as well on top of my full-time work. So a bit about my journey. I'm deaf at birth. I knew to wear a hearing aid till about 2012. I wear a cochlear implant, which is a similar type of hearing aid, but it's a wire that goes into my head, and I hear much better, which is great, fantastic. Even though I wear a hearing aid, it doesn't mean that I can hear everything. I don't. It should help me. So I still lip read, and I lip read probably about 65% of my time on average. I think it's important to tell you a little bit about my education. I went to 4 different types of education. So the first one was I went to a deaf class in a hearing school. It's called a partially hearing unit. So the teacher there were able to, they were qualified for, to teach deaf children, which is great. At the same time, I was able to integrate with hearing impaired during the activity and break. And then I went to a mainstream school, and I was the only deaf person in the whole school. And that was hard. Academically, I suffered because I didn't have all the special needs that I need, all the support. But speech-wise, I had to speak well in order for them to understand me. And then I went to a very good school for the deaf from the age of 13 to 19, which means academically I caught up and I thrived. But what's really important, and this is the thing that I want to talk about, is about inclusivity. Because could everybody with deaf, all the people with deaf, I didn't feel different. I felt normal. And that is what included me. Nobody feels left out. So that's important. And I will talk a bit about that later on. And then I went to university, and again, I was the only deaf person there, and that's hard work. But anyway, so I relied on caption. So I watch television video with caption on. I have caption on right now in front of me, so that I can follow everybody say. It doesn't come out really well what I speak, but hey ho, hopefully you'll be able to understand what I'm saying. So, work-wide, I've been in tech for over 30 years, so quite a long time. And I spent the first 20 years as a developer, mainly because I couldn't really participate in meeting. I just programmed, and I couldn't use the telephone. But because about 15 years ago, capture was provided by Janocovit before we had this automatic speech recognition, I was able to participate in meeting, which meant that I was able to develop myself and go to different roles. So I became a tech lead, and eventually became a project manager and then a technical lead. So I started IBM as a developer, and then I became a contractor, a Java contractor for 5 years. And then I worked for an investment bank for Morgan Stanley for 11 years. And then after I left Morgan Stanley, I joined a startup company to become a multimillionaire and retire early. But I'm still here. It obviously didn't work. And now I'm at ThoughtWorks, and I've been at ThoughtWorks for 5 years. Outside work, I'm also a trustee for two charities, one called Scope, which is a UK disability charity, the other one is called Save Tech, which provides caption for theatre and art and culture. I'm also advisory of a very small startup company in India, which provide heads-up display caption in real time, because it's my passion, and it means that ThoughtWorks allow me to do those things which I'm so passionate about, same time not compromising my full-time role. So a typical day in the office, well, they're very different, but generally, the most important thing of all, because I'm a delivery lead, I make sure the team has all the tools they have, they're able to do their role, but most importantly, I make sure that they're happy. And one of the keys to make them happy is to buy them snack, fruit, little things. It work. And I buy what I call a snack box, and I have to make sure that that is full. If it's empty, I need to rush out to the shop to get more. Very important. But at the same time, I have lots of meetings. So we have, in an agile way, we have daily dance up, we have sprint planning. I have lots of meetings with the stakeholders, making sure they're happy, managing their expectation, and so on. Of course, we do presentation, showcasing, those type of meeting. I also do some management, for example, reporting, budget tracking, making sure that they attended. I also look after the staffing, so some may be off sick, or some had to leave and I have to replace, and so on. And of course, we celebrate our work. Every now and again, we should celebrate our milestone achievement, birthday, anything. We always find a good excuse to celebrate. So what's the challenge that I faced? Well, the reason I mentioned that, because of my disability, I think it's very important that I tell you. So, as you know, I liberate, and when I meet people for the first time, everybody has different lip movement. So I have to learn how to lip read them. And it takes me maybe 2 or 3 conversations to really get used to it, to do their lip movement. So that's my challenge. So every time I start a new project, I have to learn how to lip read them, and I have to really focus. And the first 2 or 3 weeks, I'm really tired at the end of the day. But I have a amazing support with the team, and that's something I need to be aware of. The other challenge is managing expectation, especially with the stakeholders. You know, sometimes the project doesn't deliver on time, or that we have to block it, and so on. And the key is to manage the stakeholders' expectation, tell the bad news sooner rather later, and so on. And of course, very important, is keeping up morale of the team, not just thought workers, but also the client, making sure everybody's happy. So what interests me most about, and what I'm passionate about? Well, first of all, the variety of people and projects. That's why I like working for ThoughtWorks, because very often we work maybe 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, maybe a year or two, but different domain, different client, different environment. Yes, they're challenging, yes, they're hard work, but I love learning new things. And I love tech. So I would say the first 20 years, it'd probably be quite boring because most of the time it's about developing a website or a database. So if I go to a dinner party, for example, people say, "Oh, hi, Matthew. What do you do for a living?" And I tell them I work in tech. And they get, "That's it, end of conversation." But now we've got amazing tech coming out there. We've got biometric, 3D printing, artificial intelligence, machine learning, virtual reality, internet, so on. It's so exciting. And all of a sudden, when I go to a dinner party, instead of saying, "What do you do, Matthew?" Like, "Oh, wow, really amazing." And, we always have conversations about technology. To be honest, I've been here for 30 years, and I'd say now, or the last few years, it's the most exciting time to work in tech. So, yes, I do have a full-time job. What's nice about ThoughtWorks is that they allow you to do other things outside your time, and you never be alone. You always find someone who wants to work with you. I'm a disability champion at ThoughtWorks, and I'm a member of the Global Disability Working Group, which we were trying to improve the policy, make sure the workplace is inclusive, not just at ThoughtWorks, but also at our client. And I also lead the accessibility group, which how do we make our policy, our product, our service inclusive? How do we make everybody feel inclusive? And not just at ThoughtWorks, but also at our client. We can encourage them. Have you thought about your product or service? Because it's the right thing to do. It's not a privilege, it's the right thing to do, but also it creates the customer base. And it makes people want to buy your product. So the physical world is full of practical challenges because you have lamppost, you have pavement, you have the post office and the post box, and you have the sea, the river, trees. They are, obstacles everywhere. But in the digital world, it could be a place where inclusive is by default. And my passion, and ThoughtWorks generally, is to make that inclusive default. No one should be feel left out. The tech is there, and it's mature and it's ready. And that is what made me drive at ThoughtWorks. And that's all from me. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Lucy.
Thanks, Matthew. That was awesome. Thank you so much. I'm Lucy. So I just wanted to give you another way. My journey into being a software developer is not the usual way. So at ThoughtWorks, we really embrace diversity at all levels. And I think I'm a living proof of that. So I've just put in a bunch of pictures because I've done so many things in my career before a developer, but just to give you an understanding, I actually started off my career, I'm from Australia, so I started off my career in advertising. I was basically managing big sales campaigns. One of my key clients was actually Shell Australia and New Zealand. And I think those couple of years in advertising probably taught me, actually what it taught me most is resilience. Because I'm in a role where I'm constantly in a tug of war between production, client, legal, media. So I think for me, the takeaway I took away is just being able to handle unexpected situations, lots of confrontations, and at the same time delivering big campaigns. But I got over the selling aspect, and I wanted to use my communication skills in other industries. So I literally went from one extreme, from private to the public sector. And you can see there's a picture of their consumer affairs. I worked for the state government of Victoria, Consumer Affairs Victoria. Basically, anything that you can imagine that impacts consumers, from renting, from fair trading, to building, lots of issues. There's like 40 different pieces of legislation that the government administers, or the agency that I worked with. And that is an actual campaign that I worked on. It's called Party for Your Rights. And the whole point of that product was to educate citizens around their buying and purchasing rights. And it was targeted at teenagers. And that was one of the defining moments, I think, in my career, where I started to think differently about what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. Most of my job have been coming up with a lot of concepts about how we educate people on different topics, and seeing that through right from product development into something that you see that the users actually, see, interact with. And it was part of that journey that I would work with digital agencies at the time, and got to understand, what is the technical skill that's actually required to make this happen. So that kind of sparked my first interest. I've got a couple of other pictures down there because my family, my parents are divorced, and my mum owns a confectionery store, and my dad owned a wholesale sushi business, of which I ran on the side with them and sold. So I still had a little bit of a lot of multitasking, but I also learned a lot about owning a private business and the challenges that it comes with running them, particularly with your family. So at that time, while it's seeded, I didn't actually take the leap, because there are certain reservations I had about switching careers. It's not an easy decision to make, particularly when you're 10 years down and you've got a mortgage and you've got financial responsibilities. It's not something like, I'll just drop my career and I'll just do something else. So it was around this time that I moved to London, and you can see down the bottom, you've got this this ear with I think it's the cochlea inside, actually, and also drinkware. But I hadn't worked in for not-for-profit, so I actually consulted in not-for-profit for a year before I became a developer. And it was during that time where I built up the funds to do a coding course and then switch the career. So I don't think if I didn't move to London, I don't think I would have done that, actually. I think London was a city that just made you feel like you could do anything, I honestly think if I had stayed in Australia, I probably would have stayed in my government job, because I was working lots of different projects. That was just one of them. I also worked on a renting app. It was a hybrid mobile app. And that was like my last project when I left. So I actually don't think I would have made that leap. And I think London, I have to really thank London for that, because I met so many people that were so diverse and that were so brave and courageous, that really inspired me to think that actually, I can do anything. Why can't I learn a new skill, So basically that led me to do the coding camp. I'm not going to lie, the first couple of years, really tough, really challenging. Lots of new things. When you haven't learned something that new for that long, put yourself in that uncomfortable place, yeah, it's tough. But if you just keep working at it, and persistence really helped here, and paid off. Because the day that I got my offer from ThoughtWorks, I also got an offer from another company. And I picked ThoughtWorks at the time because I just really loved their ethos. I looked at their website. I am a person that, likes to check out exactly who I'm joining. And I think I made the right choice here, because I've been at ThoughtWorks for 5 years now. I've been able to progress from a graduate developer to a senior developer now, and working to be a lead. And I've just loved every minute of it, even the tough times. I want to spend the next bit talking about my career at ThoughtWorks and kind of the projects that you get to work on. So 3 projects really kind of highlight out to me, just to show you kind of how different projects can be. One of the first projects I worked on was actually a discovery project, which meant that it didn't actually have so much dev time. We actually had to build a prototype, but we were actually working with a Belgian filmmaker to try and find tech solutions on how to reconcile lost families in Kakuma in Africa. And the Belgian filmmaker had been there for 5 years filming, and he had recognized this problem, and he had spotted an opportunity to use, because people had at some level a phone. So what could we do to help lost families reunite? So that is what we call a discovery project. And it's really just about exploring the problem and what the tech solution could be. And wow, what a great, it was, I think, a 4-month project. And what a great team that was. It was a team of people from different countries as well. We got to travel a little bit, which was great. But what it pulled out a lot as under the tech is like, seemingly the tech's actually straightforward, but it's always the domain and the business and the considerations, the other considerations that come out. For example, you're dealing with minors here, you're dealing with young children. You know, how are you going to make sure from a security perspective that you're reconciling the right people together? You don't want to be sending a little child off with someone else that they have absolutely no idea with. So I think, yeah, great project. Could talk more about that, but I think I won't go into too much depth. But there's a couple of other projects. 2 years ago, I worked on the first enterprise blockchain solution, which first came out of a hackathon that ThoughtWorks participated at, which we won, and then turned into a project where we worked with the client to actually build from proof of concept to a product in the market, and the company is still running. And that was interesting to look at blockchain in its application on other areas besides cryptocurrencies. So how do we implement smart contracts between trading contracts, I guess. So the smart contract would be a trade between 2 customers. However, we're not using a public blockchain, we're also using a private blockchain. So what are the security implications with that? But also, how do we achieve the same transparency, the same security, the consistency that blockchain brings? So, so that was another really interesting piece of work. The other thing I think ThoughtWorks does really well is transformation projects. Lots of clients come up to us where they're doing, like the current client that I'm working on, they've done everything up to, you know, when we joined with them on spreadsheets and Bob reports, etc. So very old school days. And then taking the value that this organization brings and the amount of impact they have on the UK market is a huge assignment. You know, we've got one of the biggest clients on at the moment in the UK business, and there is definitely a challenge working in a project where there's 10 different teams, lots of different services. How do you ensure successful delivery? And ThoughtWorks is absolutely brilliant at that, because we basically find ways to collaborate. And that's one thing I think. It's not just a place that allows you to learn. It's a place where I think we collaborate really well. Every team that I've been on has been always sad to leave at the end. Every new team that I've joined on have always been a bit more like that post-project blues that I feel like, you know, I don't know anybody, but then I actually get to know another family, a group of people that I end up loving at the end. So I think the way that we try to encourage each other, work through tough problems, tough situations, has been, for me, one of the defining factors on why I probably stayed at ThoughtWorks. Is such a kudos to the people. And I think given my background, consulting was perfect for me, because I've always been a person that loved working on different topics and different themes, and consultancy is absolutely perfect for that, because sometimes you just never know what you're going to get. You'll be popped on a project one day and it'll be something topic completely you have absolutely no idea about, but trust your instincts because you'll have the skill set to face them and gain much more knowledge than you think you will. So have I rambled on enough? Was that 8 minutes? I don't know. Yeah, welcome any questions. But anyway, hopefully that was helpful and it gave you some insight on life at ThoughtWorks. Yeah,
no, lovely. It really did, Lucy. Thank you very much for your presentation there, and thank you to all of the speakers so far. I think we've got a really good insight into what it's like to work with ThoughtWorks on a day-to-day basis. Obviously with diversity and inclusivity, not just in terms of the internal policies, but also in terms of the work and the projects that you're working on. It sounds like a really exciting place to work. So yeah, let's dive into some of the audience questions. So I think, Amy, if we can come to you first. So we've had a question about your diversity, equity and inclusion goals being fantastic, first of all. But secondly, how do you kind of measure that, and what are the next steps as an organisation you're looking to take moving forward?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I don't know how succinctly I can answer it. I could probably take up the rest of the session talking about this, but I won't. So how do we measure progress? So there's a few different ways. I think what we do is we set aspirational goals for how we believe our business should look, right? So we know that we, as a tech industry, there is an issue around women technologists. There are not enough women who are involved in important projects, delivering software and developing software. So we know that aspirationally, we want to get to a place where we see lots of women involved in these things. So we do look at actually the percentage of our business and how that's kind of distributed in terms of gender. We want to get better at understanding the demographics when it comes to race, because again, we have challenges as an industry, particularly in the UK, around representation of Black folks who are building software, and that needs to improve as well. So I think we set aspirational goals for where we want to improve. But even if we see those numbers improving, that only tells you a very small part of the picture. That tells you that, yes, people may be joining us, but actually what are their experiences once they're at ThoughtWorks? And that's even more important. So we are constantly doing, we have engagement surveys that are completely anonymous, that people have an opportunity to tell us about their own experiences. I'm working at the moment on actually doing some interviews with people to understand what their experiences are like at ThoughtWorks. Are there any barriers? Are there any challenges? Are there any themes that we should be paying attention to that we're perhaps not already aware of? So we're always looking for data points and evidence that tells us what's going well and what can we do more of, and actually where do we need to improve and what do we need to address. So it's a combination of a few different things, but I think we kind of we do look at external benchmarking. So I mentioned Stonewall. They ask, I think this year they had 500 companies participate in their workplace equality index. So you send a whole bunch of information around the stuff that you're doing around LGBT inclusion, and then they rank it and they mark it and they give you feedback. So that's a great way of us going, what are we doing well and where do we need to improve? And part of that is actually surveying our people anonymously about their experiences in our workplace. So we're always looking for those checkpoints of how are we doing, what do we need to improve, and where do we need to be really intentional about our focus. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's that attitude of kind of continuously looking at ways to, and I think it's more the listening aspect, to be honest, that you touched on there. You know, we all know the phrase around assumptions and why they should never be made. And I think listening to the staff and really kind of digging into those things is absolutely crucial in order to instigate change.
Yeah, and I feel, sorry, one more final point. I feel really, is it honoured that people feel that they can share so much with us and know that we will listen and respond. Like the conversations I have with people, it's so good that they feel comfortable and safe enough to tell me if things aren't going well and help me understand what we can do better and have faith that things will change. Because I think that's what it's about. Listening is part of it, but taking action. If the action doesn't happen, you might as well not be pretending to listen if you're not going to do anything about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Fantastic. So if we can come to you next, please, Matthew. It'd be great just to get an insight into kind of the day-to-day aspect from a project perspective. So, I mean, what's your favourite project that you've worked on, either personally or primarily at ThoughtWorks?
Wow. I've been around for quite a while, 30 years. I'm revealing my age here. I've had some really interesting projects. I've had some really boring projects. But what excites me is making a change. It could be the project, could impact people, making a difference. But also changing the client, the way they're working. They can be very, very good word, old-fashioned. But ThoughtWorks, what I love about ThoughtWorks is that we are very diverse. We come from different nationality. So I'll give you an example. Last year, I had a project with a team of 14 people, and there were 11 different nationalities. And that was wonderful. And it was so productive because people had different mindset, different approaches. And that way you make the product really interesting, and it makes the environment much more inclusive. And the clients saw that, and we actually influenced, changed their way of working, and they copied some of our policies, some of our implementation, and so on. And that's very powerful for me. But also, a year ago, during the COVID, I can't tell too much, but we have to help out a very important project that would involve the COVID. It would long hours, but it meant we knew we were helping the country. And for me, that's very important. We actually making a difference. We're actually helping society. So that's, they're too important. The third one is interesting psychology. When we do interesting tech, that really excites me because I have a very strong technical background, and when we do leading tech to make a difference, that really excites me. So they need a sort of three attributes that make the project interesting.
Fantastic, excellent, and and again, I think ThoughtWorks seems like the right place to have that sort of impact. Not just impact in terms of, like you said, during COVID, helping the country, but also working on inclusive projects. And like you say, those diverse opinions mean that you figure out a lot more of the edge cases earlier on at the planning stage rather than later on when you've got a very very kind of homogenous opinion or set of people working on it. Excellent. So Lucy, it'd be great to come to you next. We've got two questions here that I think kind of go together. So first one is from Susan Murray. What studies or trainings did you undertake? Was it an online course? And what programming language did you learn or focus on in order to kind of get into software development? It'd be great if you could elaborate on that slightly. And then secondly, a question from Cynthia, which is basically saying, what is the hiring process for bootcamp grads like, and would you have any advice for people like herself who will be graduating soon?
Yep, sure, great questions. With the transition, I just want to say this is quite a personal decision on how you want to learn your new skill, because everyone learns in different ways. I definitely looked at the opportunity of going back to university and doing a computer science degree. That was definitely something I considered, but I wasn't young at the time, and I wanted some practical skills. I wanted quick practical skills. I just wanted to see if I could do this actually, because without investing too much money into it. So I would just put a caveat to say that there is nothing wrong with going back and doing a university course, computer science. That's absolutely fine. For me though, I was a person that I like to get hands-on. So I saved up money to do a bootcamp course, and the first language that I learned, the bootcamp course actually was 3 months, but they actually get you to do a 1 month self-study beforehand. So I learned my first language basically through resources they've provided, and also doing a lot of code wars. I don't know if people know about Code Wars. That was popular at the time when I was doing it, and reading a lot of blogs and articles. And my first language was Ruby. And I think Ruby is a good dynamic language to learn. As a first one, it's relatively friendly, really easy to read. However, in hindsight, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to learn a static type language like Java as well, just to understand the stack and the heap, etc. Some of the basic memory management. Yeah, Ruby was the first language that I did, and I followed the course. Whatever the course that I didn't understand, I would just read up on it, practice it. It's hard. I read books on it. The Well-Grounded Ruby was like one of the staple books that you have. And then doing the exercises and then sticking with the course. And I was a really hands-on person. So I wanted to learn with somebody, right? I could do as much on my own, but I knew that I would need support because it's not like I wrote code before. I didn't write a line of code before. So I wanted the support. So the bootcamp style was great because I wanted the face-to-face contact and to work with other people and code with other people. So that's how it began. And it just went on from there. I would say that when you're learning something new, it is quite overwhelming. I mean, the world of technology and the world of software is vast. It's a vast landscape. And I don't think I've not met anyone who said I know it all. No, I think that people build expertise in areas. And some people have more breadth, and some people have more of a T, and T developer have more a focus on, say, security or infrastructure or just Java maybe. I just want to be a Java developer, absolutely fine. In terms of the recruitment process, I don't think there is anything different to the recruitment, not that I know of. I think everyone's treated equally. So you do need to prepare yourself to do a technical test and do some live pair programming. And really, I think when you're starting out, those kind of technical interviews can be a bit daunting. It's hard. And even I think at all levels, going away and moving to another job and doing reviewing your basics, it's an ongoing learning, I think, that you have to do. But I would say that with ThoughtWorks, we're not really looking about, you getting to the right answer. We're really looking at how you think and how you approach the problem and how you work together with somebody. That's more importantly, your communication skills, how you listen to others, what are the logical steps you take in terms of implementing a piece of solution, how you understand the problem. Those things are far more important than just writing out code at speed in 10 minutes saying I'm done with it. And also the other thing is we look for mentors, we look for people. I would not be where I am without mentors along my journey. So, and even me, my role, I have to mentor a lot of junior developers, and I love doing that because I know what it felt like when I was back there. So the only thing I can do is just make it a safe space for them to learn. So I think I would just say that, do some practice questions, understand your basics. You know much more than you think you do, and the interviewers there are not to catch you out. We're there to provide a good safe space so that you can succeed. Hope that helps.
Bill, can I add just a couple of things to Lucy? Totally agree with Lucy, but I think the key for art is tech changed so fast. It's very hard to keep up with the technology. The skills you've learned 2 years ago might be out of date. So don't worry about not knowing everything in the language, but the key is the ability, the willingness to learn. That's the key. If you're willing to learn, and the ability to, able to pick up changes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, look, there is a bit of a sea change in tech recruitment at the moment anyway. I think more and more companies are looking to hire for attitude rather than kind of the skills that that people necessarily have at the moment. I think we all know there is a dearth of technical talent in the country, whether you're looking at it from a diverse perspective or just in general. There's more demand for software developers and IT professionals than they are out there. So I think more and more companies, and ThoughtWorks sound like they're kind of leading the way on this, are looking at hiring for attitude rather than you know, how many years have you been using Java, or do you understand TDD and things like that. So it's something that we're seeing in the marketplace as well. And you know, I could only encourage anyone who is thinking about that move to explore the opportunities, because yeah, they're certainly out there, and there are certainly companies, you know, alongside ThoughtWorks that are prepared to offer people that time. Great, Rebecca, it'd be good to come to you very quickly, just obviously to give the audience a bit of a flavour of kind of the roles you're hiring for at the moment, and also what that hiring process might kind of look like.
Yeah, sure. I can help you with that. So in terms of our recruitment for this year, we have some pretty impressive growth goals as an overall business. So we are heavily recruiting in the software developer fields at various different levels. So we have consultant level, senior and lead. At present, we have a little bit of a focus on Java, but that does change throughout the year. It's not always the only coding language. We do kind of move around and change. So you don't definitely have to have Java if you're keen to learn something new. We would definitely welcome an application. In light of everything that's happening with COVID, all of our recruitment has moved online. So it's all gone virtual, which is nice. You still get to meet some smiley faces. But the first step is a screening conversation with the recruiter. So it would be myself. And that's all about just understanding a little bit more about you, what your interests are, what your passions are, maybe some of the interesting projects that you've maybe worked on previously. And then the next step, as Lucy mentioned, is pair programming. So it takes place virtually. Nothing to heavily prepare for, as a lot of the materials shared on the day, but it's a great opportunity to meet with another developer in the business and work together, talk through your rationale, understand how you would implement some new code, look at any bugs and things like that. So very, very interactive. And then the next part is a two-part process. So a technical interview, so delving a little bit deeper into your technology and your background, get a little bit of a coffee break in the middle, so it's not too heavy going. And then the next part is a cultural alignment. So you've probably gathered that we are very values led, all about the softer skills. So what is it that really gets you ticking? So you get to meet with someone from the community, not necessarily developers, it can be anyone in the business, which is nice. And it's all about understanding what makes you you. So what do you like to learn? Like what gets you going in the morning? A lot of the times it's conversation can kind of go in all different directions. I remember having mine and I was talking about my love of Spanish music and dancing. So that's kind of what gets me going. So it's nothing to prepare for, just about finding out more about you. And then the very, very final stage is what we call a leadership sign off. So that's a great chance to meet with one of our leadership teams and really understand the business from a holistic point of view. So they can give you a really, really good insight of the business, what our goals are, what our strategies are, and where you would fit into that process. And then if that's all like green light, tick, 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 we would then move to offer, which is quite nice. Just to know that it is really informal, so you don't need to be suited and booted on any of these Zoom calls. Just bring your best self, and we're happy to have a conversation. So I'd welcome any new applications. If you're happy to kind of have a Zoom or a conversation with me, I'm happy to speak to you. But yeah, our recruitment process is pretty fun. The teams are really nice, so you're in good hands.
Fantastic, thank you very much. And just to reiterate what I said at the start, if anyone's been interested in what they've heard today on the call, I really would recommend kind of looking out for the email that follows up, and getting in touch with ThoughtWorks, because I think, yeah, we've heard some really, really impressive things, not just about the tech and the day-to-day work, but also the inclusivity and culture of the company. Just to round up, it'd be interesting to come back to you, Amy. So we've had a question come in from Guns Ramen, which is, do you have any advice for women trying to start their software development career after a long career break for raising children? I know, again, that's something that's rising on the agenda for a lot of companies at the moment.
I think that's a really, really good question. And I know that there are lots of organizations who are talking about this, like how can we best support women who are in that kind of position, who are at that part of their journey. I know that some places offer almost like returnships, so fast track opportunities to come back into the industry. That's something that I hope we can do in the future at ThoughtWorks. We're not there yet, but I would love to kind of structure something that can support people on that journey. I think try and immerse yourself as best as you can in the community, establish a network, whether that's going to kind of meetups, which I know is a bit challenging at the moment because we're virtual, but try and connect with people, build your network, because I think most of what we do depends on having a good network behind us and people who can advocate and put us in contact and connect us with opportunities. So that would be my first suggestion. I'm just really conscious of time, is get in that network, connect with people, connect with me on LinkedIn. Like, I'm more than happy to try and help if I can. But yeah, really just understand the learning, understand what's happening in the tech industry. How can you get up to speed? But really, if you've taken a break, all you need is to just get back into it. The basics, the fundamentals are there. You will pick it up really, really quickly. You just kind of need to immerse yourself as best as you can.
Absolutely. And we just to follow up on that, we do actually partner with another organisation called Tech Returners. So Guns, I can follow up afterwards via email and drop you a link to them if that's something that you would like to look at. They run programs, it involves a little bit of training, and then they place you at companies that are open to taking on people from that sort of background. Lovely. So we have come to the end of the webinar, but I just want to thank all of our panelists today. I think we've had some really, really engaging content, been really, really nice to get some insight into ThoughtWorks. And thank you to our audience as well for attending. I hope you found it as interesting as I did. And once more, please do look out for that email and get your applications or questions in if you're interested. Thank you very much, and see you all later. Cheers out.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.